Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, The God Code Exposed. Imagine sitting in a hospital bed, knowing that you're about to die. You've just received your final diagnosis from your doctor, and it's confirmed what you've known for some time now. Your body is shutting down and there's nothing anyone can do about it. You're alone in this room. You call out for your loved ones, but no one is coming. You call out for God, but he doesn't answer either. So what do you do at this point? Well, if you were this patient, you would have had the chance to speak to a medical psychologist who may have changed your mind about an important topic, death. Welcome back, everyone. Here, we're about to tell you what a medical psychologist revealed about the afterlife. So make sure you stay till the end to hear his fascinating story. In today's story, we will be looking at a medical psychologist who was skeptical of the afterlife until he encountered a near-death experience while skydiving. His encounter left him with more questions than answers, but it also opened up a new world of possibilities for him. He was a medical psychologist who worked in a busy city hospital. One day, a new patient was brought in. It was a young man who had been in an accident and was now in a coma. As a medical psychologist, it was our job to determine whether or not he would wake up. We ran all the tests we could think of and determined that his brain activity was very low. It seemed unlikely that he would ever wake up again, but something kept drawing me back to this patient. I don't know if it was his eyes, which seemed to twinkle even in his unconscious state, or maybe it was the way his face seemed to relax whenever I entered the room. Whatever it was, I couldn't help but feel drawn to him. I began visiting him every day, sitting by his bedside and talking to him about anything and everything. I told him about my weekend plans, my favorite childhood memories, and even some of the mistakes I had made in my life. To my surprise, he seemed to respond to me, moving his head and making small sounds. I didn't know if it was possible, but I felt as though he was trying to communicate with me. One day I was talking to him about my childhood, when suddenly he began to move his lips. I leaned closer to him and heard him say, "Why are you here?" I was shocked. This was the first time he had spoken to me since his accident. I responded by telling him how much I enjoyed talking to him and how much I learned from our conversations, but deep down, I knew that wasn't the real reason I was visiting him. I continued to visit him every day, but now our conversations were different. He would ask me questions about the world around him, such as what the weather was like outside or what time it was. I would answer his questions to the best of my ability, but I could tell he was becoming increasingly frustrated with my lack of knowledge. He would often shake his head and sigh heavily after I left. It was then that I realized he was trying to tell me something important. One day I asked him directly, "What do you want to tell me?" He looked me in the eye and said, "You are not supposed to be here." I was confused. "What do you mean?" I asked. "This is not your place," he replied. "You need to go where I am going." Before I could ask any more questions, he went back into a coma. His words echoed in my mind long after I left the hospital. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was trying to tell me something important, but I didn't know what it was. I tried to focus on my work, but I couldn't help thinking about my patient and his mysterious words. I began researching the possibility of communicating with people in a coma and learned about a technique called facilitated communication. The technique involves using a computer to help a person in a coma communicate with the outside world. I wasn't sure if it would work, but I had nothing to lose. I set up a computer in the patient's room and began communicating with him through the machine. At first, he didn't seem to respond, but then he began typing out single words. I was amazed. I continued asking him questions, and he answered each one in kind. Through our conversations, I learned that he was aware of everything that was going on around him, including me sitting in the room. He told me he had been trying to communicate with me the entire time, but I hadn't been able to understand him. He explained that the only reason I was in the hospital was to learn a valuable lesson. Before I could ask him what lesson, he went back into a coma. I was devastated. I had come so close to unlocking the mysteries of the universe, but now he had gone silent again. I continued visiting him every day, hoping that he would wake up and continue communicating with me. But as the weeks passed, I began to lose hope. Then one day, while I was sitting by his bedside, I heard a voice in my head. It said, "You have what you came for." I was confused, but I knew I had to leave the hospital. As soon as I stepped outside, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. A sense of peace washed over me, and I knew I had found the answer I had been searching for. It took me a while to piece it all together, but eventually I figured out what my patient had been trying to tell me. He was trying to tell me that there is life after death. I don't know how or why he knew this, but he did. And he was trying to help me understand that death is not the end. After I learned this lesson, my views on death changed completely. I no longer fear death because I know that it is just a transition to another realm of existence. I also learned that we have the ability to communicate with those who have died. I don't know if this is possible for everyone, but I know it's true for me. Now, you might be wondering why I didn't share my patient's story sooner. Well, the truth is I was afraid. Afraid of what people would think of me, afraid of being ridiculed, and most of all, afraid of losing my job. But now I feel like it's time to spread the word. I want to help others understand that there is life after death, and that we can communicate with those who have died. My patient's story is just one example of this. There are countless other stories out there that we need to be sharing. Together, we can change the world's view on death and help people find peace in knowing that their loved ones are still with them. If you're struggling to come to terms with the death of a loved one, know that you're not alone. I've been where you are and I understand the pain you're feeling. But please believe me when I tell you that your loved one is still with you. They want you to be happy, and they want you to know that they're okay. It took me years to realize this, but I eventually came to understand that my loved ones are still with me. They're watching over me and guiding me every step of the way. If you need help coming to terms with the death of a loved one, please reach out to someone you trust. Talk about your feelings and let them help you through this difficult time. Remember, you're not alone and things will get better with time. While working in the hospital, I met a lot of patients who were terminally ill. Some of them were dying, and I would sit with them and talk about their lives. One particular patient was a young man named Daniel, who was dying of cancer. Daniel was only 20 years old when he was diagnosed with cancer. He fought hard and never lost hope. But eventually the cancer won, and he knew his time was running out. Daniel wanted to leave behind a message for his family and friends, and he asked me to help him record it. I sat down with him and talked about his life, his hopes and dreams, and the legacy he wanted to leave behind. It was a beautiful conversation, and I was honored that he chose me to record his final message. When Daniel passed away, I made sure to send his message to his family and friends. It was a comfort to them, and they thanked me for helping Daniel fulfill his final wish. Daniel's story taught me the importance of living each day to the fullest and never giving up hope. He was an inspiration to everyone who knew him, and I will never forget him. Another patient I met was a wise old woman named Helen. Helen had lived a long and fulfilling life and had seen her fair share of ups and downs. When she was nearing the end of her life, she was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and I became her medical psychologist. Helen was calm and accepting of her fate, and she never once complained. She taught me the importance of acceptance and how to find peace in difficult situations. One day, Helen shared her thoughts on death with me. She said that she wasn't afraid to die because she had lived a good life and had no regrets. She said that she was ready to move on, and that death was just a new beginning. Helen passed away peacefully, and I was grateful to have been a part of her final journey. Her wisdom and grace continue to inspire me, and I often think back to her words when dealing with patients who are facing the end of their lives. Finally, I want to tell you about a patient named Peter, who taught me the importance of compassion and empathy. Peter was a middle-aged man who had been battling a serious illness for many years. He had undergone numerous treatments and surgeries, but nothing seemed to work. Peter was frustrated and angry, and he often lashed out at the medical staff. It was during one of these moments that I realized that Peter wasn't just a patient. He was a human being who was scared and desperate. I took the time to listen to Peter and acknowledge his feelings. I didn't try to fix him or offer false hope. I simply listened and showed compassion. Peter eventually calmed down and shared his fears and concerns with me. I promised to do everything I could to help him, and I kept my promise. Although Peter's illness ultimately took his life, I take comfort in knowing that I made a difference in his final days. These are just a few of the many patients I have met during my career as a medical psychologist. Each patient has taught me something valuable about life, death, and the importance of compassion and empathy. I will never forget the lessons they have taught me, and I am grateful to have been a part of their lives. I'm a medical psychologist, and I've devoted my career to helping people understand the mysteries of the mind and the body. So my passion for my work has taken me all over the world, and I've had the privilege of meeting countless amazing people along the way. However, one of the most profound experiences of my life happened unexpectedly while I was skydiving. Yes, skydiving. I know it seems crazy, but I've always been drawn to extreme sports, and I decided to take the plunge. As I jumped out of the plane with my instructor, I felt a rush of adrenaline unlike anything I'd ever experienced. As we floated through the air, I looked down at the tiny houses below and realized how insignificant our worries and problems are in the grand scheme of things. It was at that moment that I felt truly free. But as the reality of my situation sank in, I started to panic. What if the parachute didn't open? What if I hit the ground? Suddenly, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I closed my eyes and focused on my breath. And when I opened them again, the fear was gone. I had never experienced such inner peace before. It was as if I had tapped into something bigger than myself. As my instructor and I prepared to land, I knew that my life would never be the same. After I returned home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted within me. I started to see the world in a new light and felt a sense of purpose that I had never felt before. I knew that I wanted to share this experience with others and help them find their own inner peace. So I started leading groups of people on skydiving adventures. I also began to study meditation and mindfulness practices and incorporated them into my daily life. And then one day, I met a woman named Sarah who changed my life forever. Sarah had been through a traumatic event and was struggling to cope. When she first approached me, I could tell that she was in a lot of pain, but I also saw a spark of hope in her eyes. I took Sarah on a skydiving adventure and watched as she let go of her fears and embraced the present moment. After her jump, Sarah told me that she felt more at peace than she had in years. She credited the experience with helping her heal and move forward with her life. It was at that moment that I realized the impact that my work was having on people's lives. I knew that I had found my calling. Today, I continue to lead groups on skydiving adventures and help people transform their lives through the power of facing their fears and embracing the present. I've written several books on the topic and have been featured on numerous podcasts and TV shows. But my greatest joy comes from the small moments, like when I see a group of people laughing and bonding over their shared experience, or when I receive a message from someone who credits my work with helping them overcome a difficult time in their life. Looking back on my journey, I can honestly say that I wouldn't trade it for the world. From my early fascination with the human body to my life-changing experience with death, every moment has led me to where I am today. If I could go back and tell my younger self anything, it would be to embrace the unknown with open arms. Every fear and obstacle has taught me valuable lessons and helped me grow in ways that I never imagined possible. As I look to the future, I feel excited and optimistic. I know that the path ahead will be filled with challenges, but I'm confident that I have the tools and resilience to overcome them. My advice to others is to never give up on your dreams, no matter how big or small they may seem. With hard work, dedication, and a willingness to embrace the unknown, anything is possible.